Hi, it's Tuesday, October the 8th, and we're tracking Major Hurricane Milton in the southern Gulf of Mexico. This system has had a very impressive past 24 hours. The system yesterday peaked with winds of 180 miles per hour and a pressure of 897 millibars, a pressure that not many Atlantic hurricanes have ever achieved in the record books since reliable records began back in 1851. And after that peak, we had an eye wall replacement cycle, and that's where you get an outer band of thunderstorms that wraps fully around the eye. And through that cycle, that outer ring will, in a way, choke off the inner eye, and that inner eye will die out. And then, after the process is complete, you now have a new, larger eye, and the hurricane is able to intensify, usually back to close to an intensity that it was before that replacement cycle. And that's what we're seeing this afternoon. You can see that we have a larger eye than yesterday. The diameter of this, last I checked, was about 12 nautical miles. It may be smaller than that now, just given the most recent recon observations that I haven't seen yet. But the system has also been able to re-intensify to Category 5 intensity. You can see on this pass from the Air Force plane that we just got from the northwest to the southeast, they found Cat 5 winds on the southeast and northwest side at flight level. Now, the strongest winds so far have been on the southeastern side, and those were at the plane's level of altitude, about 185 miles per hour. When you translate that down to the surface, it roughly gets you about 165 miles per hour. That's comfortably in Category 5, and the central pressure is very impressive. The central pressure recorded was about 905 millibars, and we may still be dropping. Is it possible this goes sub 900 again? It is within the realm of possibility. We may be seeing yet another incredible peak, and especially for the Gulf of Mexico, this is a peak that you don't usually see all too often at all. The closest storm we've had to peak like this was Hurricane Rita in 2005. Before then, I'm not too sure. Maybe Allen in 1980. And this is a rare feat for not just the Caribbean, but the Atlantic Basin as a whole. You never really get storms this strong, and this is incredibly important for everyone to pay attention to in Florida. No, we're not going to see a Category 5 come into the coast, but like I talked about yesterday, the system is growing in size. And as the system is still a Cat 5, it was high on Cat 4 early this morning, it's pushing a lot of water, and it's piling up on the south side of this hurricane. And when this comes into the coast of Florida sometime tomorrow night, all that water has to go somewhere. It's going to come up along that coast, and we're likely to see an extreme storm surge in areas like Port Charlotte all the way up to the Tampa Bay area, and it'll be maximized just south of where the hurricane comes in. Now, right now, the upper level environment is beginning to shift. We do see that we still have an upper level high pressure system with clockwise spinning right over our storm, keeping wind shear low for now. But you can see we have this acceleration beginning in the upper level cirrus clouds over Florida. This is with the subtropical jet that is over this part of the US. And as Milton moves further north, it's going to get closer to this flow. And as a result, wind shear will increase. Now, track is going to be pretty important here because the subtropical jet, it increases in intensity, as you can imagine, as you go further north. And the trends today have been having this system come a little bit further south. We're now getting the ensemble mean coming a little bit south of Tampa Bay. And for land impact, this is very important because this can maximize surge in areas like Port Charlotte. But also, it keeps it ever so slightly further south from the stronger winds of the subtropical jet. And it's possible that this southerly track, if this continues, which of course it could change, and this is important for those in Tampa, don't take this as you're out of the woods. You're still very much within the path of the center of this hurricane and still prepare as if it is coming your way. But if it is a little bit further south, it could have a little bit less shear, and that could allow it to maintain a stronger intensity than we may be expecting right now. Right now, the current estimate is a Category 3, high end at that. It could be near Category 4 intensity by the time it comes into Florida. And it's going to be important for wind impacts across the entire peninsula, but also that storm surge. Because if you have a stronger storm, you're going to get more storm surge being pushed into the coast. And this hurricane is about to double in size, really. That's the current expectation, is that we're going to get this just large hurricane coming into the western Florida peninsula. You can see the path it's taking over the next 24 to 36 hours on the GFS. You can see it comes northeast on the western periphery of this high over the western Atlantic, and this will be pushing it into the western Florida peninsula along that central part of the coast. Right now, we've really honed in between, say, Sanibel Island, Fort Myers Beach, all the way up to, say, Clearwater, along that coastline in Florida, maybe a little bit further north, but that's our general range of landfall spots here. And we're going to continue to try and narrow that down. But of course, it's impossible to tell you, even at a day out, where the hurricane is exactly going to make landfall. And today is your last full day. This is your last really full evening to prepare for Milton. So what you need to do is finalize your preparations. And if you are in an evacuation order and you have not left yet, I know traffic is bad across Florida, but don't let that hold you back. If you're in an evacuation order, you need to leave, especially if it's a mandatory evacuation. And you never want to stick around for high storm surge. You can see on this forecast for the storm surge, we're expecting a surge of 10 to 15 feet over here in between Englewood and Tampa Bay. I'll reload this so we have the latest one just in case there are some changes. It looks like there hasn't really been any. But you can see as well in Charlotte Harbor, Sanibel Island, Fort Myers Beach, 8 to 12 feet of storm surge. This is not something you want to stick around for. We saw the impacts with Helene, and I pushed hard with Helene of getting out of evacuation zones in storm surge prone areas. And I'm going to keep pushing it here. Don't want to risk anything. And like I said, I know traffic is bad, but don't let that hold you back. Stuff like houses and stuff like that can be replaced. Human lives cannot. And always remember that. Now, this is the current forecast cone from the Hurricane Center. We're going to get the updated one for the latest advisory here. You can see everywhere in red here is a hurricane warning along the central Florida peninsula. Whereas where you could easily have hurricane force winds as the system comes in, and we have a hurricane watch, including areas like Lake Okeechobee and going down towards, say, Marco Island and Naples, Florida, and also going up towards Jacksonville, Florida, along that northeastern coast. We also have tropical storm warnings for the entire southern part of the peninsula, tropical storm warnings now in place for the northwestern Bahamas, including Great Abacos and Grand Bahama, and a tropical storm watch along the Georgia and South Carolina coast. As when the system does come offshore, it will be far south of you, but it will be interacting with a cold front, which could bring a strong fetch of winds along this part of the coastline, which could also lead to a significant water rise. That's why you see these significant storm surge values of 2 to 4 feet along coastal South Carolina and Georgia, and then 3 to 5 feet going from the central Georgia coastline down past Cape Canaveral here along the Florida coastline, including areas like Jacksonville and the St. Johns River further inland. And so don't let that catch you off guard if you get this strong storm surge here on the East Coast. Just because we're getting it coming into the West Coast does not mean that you're going to fully avoid strong impacts from this. If you remember Hurricane Ian a couple of years ago, it came into the southwestern coast of Florida as a Cat 4, but we still had significant surge along this part of the coast because we had a very strong fetch of wind in a similar fashion that Milton is going to have on this eastern coast of Florida. So it's very important that you're taking necessary precautions there to be ahead of that storm surge impact. Now, it's not going to be the only water-related issue we'll have. We'll also be dealing with a lot of rainfall across the Florida Peninsula as it comes through. It will be moving pretty fast, but even then, we're still expecting a lot of rainfall. You can see a widespread rain of 8 to 12 inches with local areas easily being able to exceed a foot of rainfall. And that falling onto saturated grounds, because we've already had some rainfall over the past couple of days here in Florida, that could easily cause some flooding issues. And for that reason, the Weather Prediction Center has issued a high risk of flash flooding across the Florida Peninsula through Thursday morning here, including areas like Tampa, Clearwater, and as far inland to Orlando. And you can see that moderate risk as well. It's a very significant risk extending further north up towards Jacksonville and Cedar Key, and further south all the way down to Fort Myers and north of Lake Okeechobee there in the southern peninsula. That's all that I've got for now on Hurricane Milton. Stay safe and prepare in Florida as Milton comes through. We'll deal with the aftermath when it comes through, but of course, make sure you're putting your life first Make sure you're taking a note of all those evacuation orders as they are issued. That's all for now. Thanks for watching.